That's great. Well, today we are going to have this panel discussion about getting hired in UX design. All the tips you are going to hear here apply for the US and for the Canadian market, because we have two panelists, one from Canada and one from the US. There are very many similarities. North America has a special way of hiring. So they are going to talk with us about special tips of how to stand out as a candidate, more like beyond the obvious thing, like we know about portfolio, we know about resume, but we are going to talk with them about little details that actually make a big difference. We were waiting for Ben, but Ben has a last minute problem, so we are going to have today only Leon and Ken. Yeah. So for the new people that they don't know what is IterateUX, we are a community for UX and UI designers. We have been in this scene for 8 months, and we have more than 400 members in weekly meetup. We have different programs. Our community is more focused for people transitioning into UX design, UX UI design, people from Bootcamp, and our idea is to create a space for you to learn more, to learn beyond the things you are learning in the different institutions, and to create a space for you to do like practical things. So what do we have in our programs are first the weekly meetings. Like every Wednesday we meet at the same time, and we have different topics around learning more about UX. And next week we are going to have something about UI, about hiring tips, about portfolio review, etc. We have a very special program called Design Challenge. We are doing one maybe next January. We are still working on that. But the Design Challenge is a challenge that you have 2 weeks to work in a project, sorry. And you team with other designers, so you work in something slightly complex. And it's a very good idea if you are working in your portfolio. You can have one piece for your portfolio from the Design Challenge. We have interview preparations. We are working on preparing those, and we have design reviews, we have portfolio reviews. So just go to Meetup and you will see all the events we have there. So next week we are going to have a session for visual design. This is very interesting. It's the first time we are doing this session. Leticia in this call and Sebastian, that is in this call too, will be working together to design a landing page for a theoretical application. It's going to be focus explaining the design decisions. We are going to talk about principles of visual design, like typography, visual hierarchy, white spacing, cognitive load, etc. So very interesting, because on the spot they are going to be designing something. It's very useful for people getting into UI. So if you want to sign up, Leticia is going to post the link in the chat now. And the agenda for today, well, this was the introduction for today. We are going to have a discussion. It's around 5 questions that I created according to the questions you submitted in the form. After the discussion, we are going to go to breakout rooms. So it's not mandatory. If you don't want to participate on that, it's fine. You can just drop the call there. But I really encourage you to participate in the breakout rooms, because these 2 participants, these 2 panelists, they are very, very interesting. They have very interesting backgrounds, and they have many good tips for how to getting hired as a designer or work as a designer. So if you want, stay for the breakout rooms. Please turn on your camera. It's nice to have this like human connection. It's nice to see our faces. So at least for the breakout rooms, it will be great if you can turn your camera on. And then after the breakout rooms, we are going to go back to the main rooms. The speakers are going to give the final tips and just say goodbyes and see you next week. Okay, so we are going to start. I'm going to present I want to stop sharing. I'm going to present these 2 panelists we have today. So the first one is Ken. He's from Salt Lake City from the US. He's a UX designer with a background in cognitive psychology and human-centered design, and he has a master's degree in UX design, so he's very good. He has a strong experience in user research and has been involved in education through mentoring and creating curriculum from UX design programs. He's currently the UX program manager of Deep Mountain, a coding tech school in Utah, and a UX UI designer in Mountain America Credit Union. So he has a very nice background in education. And the second person is Leon. I think I lost you, but yeah, Leon is from Vancouver. He has a background in graphic design. He has been working a long time for UX UI designer, and he actually was very involved in education too. He was a mentor or instructor in Red Academy, sadly an academy that closed recently in Vancouver. It was a very, very good academy. He is a mentor in Springboard too. And he is the co-founder of Collab Collective. It is a community, a friend community we have in IterateUX. He can talk more about Collab Collective, but it's very interesting. They have actually a podcast, and it's very entertaining. So yeah, we're going to start with the first questions. Let me check the question. Yeah, so the first question is, many people are transitioning into UX design from other industries, and we know our community has a lot of these people. So what was your motivation for getting into UX design? And does the work that you are doing now match your initial expectations? So I don't know who wants to start, Leon or Ken?
I can go.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me be here. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so what brought me into UX was in my undergrad, I was studying cognitive psychology, and I had a professor that introduced UX design and human factors. He told me that, kind of like that you can solve problems, you can solve design problems by collecting user research and kind of getting their insights. And that really fascinated me, simply because you could, build really good products. Like he had explained, the Herman Miller Aeron chair, which is like one of the best office chairs out there, in my opinion. I don't have one, but he used that as an example of what it takes to create a really good product. And in that case, it was like a human factors, like ergonomics kind of angle. But yeah, just, collecting information and insights from humans to create a design or an interface or something that humans can interact with easily.
Mm-hmm. So is your, when you started to jump into UX design, you had some ideas of what the career means. So when you actually got your first position, those that work match your expectations? Or it was completely different?
Yeah. Let's see. In ways it did. In other ways, not so much. I thought that I would be doing a lot more design, and I've had a couple of different positions so far. And I thought I would even be doing a little bit more research, but I'm a product designer. I design software right now, and where I reside, we talk a lot about research, but since it's an agile development program, you have to run really quickly, like make quick decisions. And so yeah, I'm designing more than I'm researching, but then there's also another side of I'm meeting with stakeholders like my product manager and other users, and so there's a lot of kind of collaboration involved too, which I wasn't really even aware of at when I was first introduced to UX design.
Oh, you're muted, Liz.
Oh, sorry. Before we go to Leon, maybe we can launch the poll now and ask the audience about this question. Leticia? Yeah, so which one of these statements better defines your current situation? Students or you have been working in tech, but not as a designer. You have been working in another industry, but you're interested in UX design. It's a very, okay. Let's give 15 seconds more. Interesting, there are many students. And many designers already. Okay, let's end the poll now.
Wait, okay. You did that.
Yeah, so mainly we have a big percentage of students, 40%, and designers that are looking to grow their careers. So it's a very mixed audience. So Leon, what about you? What were your motivations for getting into design?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me on here, Liz and Letitia. You know, this is actually my first panel discussion, let alone like virtual panels. So this is a bit nerve-wracking, but at the same time, you know, bear with me as I try and answer your questions to the best of my ability. Motivation for getting into UX was basically, I think, stemmed from probably back to like high school. We had some really interesting art and technology programs in our high school, and was really fascinated with the ability to use computers to generate art. And so that initial interest in using the early, like if you guys remember the colored iMacs and things like that, we had a lab that had those colored iMacs. So, you know, that computers and art has always kind of interested me, and I always kind of saw design as something that was an intersection of the two. And then as I kind of went into university and applied for a design program in Toronto at York University, it was a Bachelor of Design program. And from there I learned, you know, basics of graphic design, typography, you know, communication design, corporate identity. And so taking that knowledge and then further developing that, I really kind of came out of university with a sense of this is something that I'm really passionate about. And then understanding users kind of came about at my first job, which happened to be at Yahoo Canada. And I was their first sort of full-time designer on board. And previous to that, they had only hired like freelancers to do their design. And so you could kind of tell right away from their website that their news section was completely different from the sports section, let's say. And then like the auto section was completely different as well, because you would have these designers who came in and, you know, design something that was kind of in a bit of a microcosm and not really take into account the entire user experience and the brand experience of Yahoo at the time. And this was back in like 2008, right? So still, and bit of verging onto like the first sort of like tech bubble recession that happened as well at the time. And so I think coming out of that, a lot of people got a bit smarter about design and wanted to consolidate their efforts and really focus on the human aspect, as you know, Ken was talking about, and being able to conduct very valid research before you jump into designing for product. You can't just kind of like build something, hope it works. If it doesn't work, try something else. You really have to kind of put design at the forefront and, you know, in the core of your organization and your product building. So understanding that, I think, has been an interesting path, because that's kind of led me to where I am now, where it's kind of dealing with product. I switched over from UX design into more of a product management role to get a bit more of like an overall view of, you know, not just design, but also what it means to the business when you're trying to implement something, right? So carrying that forward, what does the timeline look like? What does the sprint look like? How does your user story get kind of carried through all the way into implementation? So yeah, a lot of interesting work that I'm involved in right now at work and also outside of work, and kind of really fostering this sort of UX community. And so really appreciate like being able to speak with everyone here, and yeah, welcoming all the questions.
Yeah, great. I hope the industry is more mature now and you have a different perspective of
A little
that,
better.
yeah, I think it's getting better. It's getting there.
Definitely.
Okay, next question. We are going to talk about portfolios. So Leticia is going to show you, launch a second poll about the famous portfolio for designers. So yeah, so the question is, do you have an online or PDF portfolio? Not everyone has a web page. Let's see. Oh, many people don't have one yet. That's worried. Really worried.
I'm curious who answered the last one. Badass.
Yes. We have 4 people there.
I am thinking to answer that one, actually.
Yeah.
Interesting. 5 people had a badass one.
Yes, this is.
5 seconds more. Okay, I think we can close it. Yes, I'm working on the first version because that's the most popular one. Along with, I have one, but it hasn't been very effective. Interesting. And 5 people really like their portfolios. Interesting. So yeah, about portfolios. So many people know that to have a good portfolio, you have to select the projects that are in line with the job you want to get, and you have to show the design process, not just beautiful screens. And so those little like basic details I think are covered in general. But beyond the basics, what is an outstanding portfolio from your perspective? Ken, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, I think, yeah, so I like the poll here, and to the people that maybe haven't started or they don't feel confident that their portfolio is good, I would just encourage you to start however you can, and we will probably get into some of that today. It is a sometimes an intimidating task or kind of mountain to climb, but I can assure you that if you do at least kind of just start to put pieces together, things will start to come. But to the question of what makes a good one, I think there's a lot. Portfolios and even just the UX industry is quite nuanced. But I would say that a good one is going to be a fine balance between really well articulated ideas that explain your process, explain what you actually did, and there's a lot of good like templates and outlines out there that exist for you to kind of look at, to use and kind of replicate a portfolio or a case study off of that. So there's another kind of tidbit to use, leverage your resources that are out there. So, clearly defining like what problem you're actually solving. And that should be very clear in the beginning of your case study. And then explaining, why you made certain decisions. In design, we're making decisions through design. And so the better you can kind of articulate why you made specific design decisions, the better that case study is going to stand, and the better it's going to be presented in a job interview. And then I think it's very tempting to put in a lot of high fidelity mockups. I'm not saying to not do that, but like you have to figure out what's too much and what's too little. And I think a lot of that also depends on how well you might write. Writing can be difficult for people too. And so if you can explain your process with visual aids, with some text, that would help. But if you're a better kind of writer, and if you can write well, but it should be pretty concise, and then creating not as much visual designs. And so I think it kind of just depends on how you present yourself in life. I think you can kind of use that as like some like a mantra. But Yeah, and I think it takes practice. Again, I would try to look to see what's out there, and take what you like, and you can leave the rest kind of out there. But and I I have students of my own, and I kind of tell them that same thing. But it's, again, like, I would just say again to, like, just to keep trying, and you know, just to start, whether you're new at it and you just kind of need to start writing things out, start there, and don't get too bogged down with you know, this big momentum task. Kind of take little bite size and start small before you kind of think big.
Great. What about you, Leon?
Yeah, really great points there. Lots of nice nuggets of information for how to craft a portfolio. I think to add to that, really consider your audience, right? Like, if you're looking to design a portfolio that is for an organization, an agency that is really like, you know, their design is really crisp and clean, you want your portfolio to kind of, you know, match that as well. And if you're looking to apply to an agency that is really research focused, your portfolio should be tailored towards that as well, right? So understanding that audience, and then applying applying UX to your portfolio, so that you understand the flow that happens when somebody first encounters your portfolio. They might not even, that might not be their first touch point even. It could be like your LinkedIn or your resume, right? That they're kind of jumping to your portfolio from. So, you know, the initial point of contact, and then from there, you know, you want to give brief information about what you do, who you are as a person, and then from there, like your website, what does that look like right off the bat? You know, what's going to engage people to stay on the website and scroll down and scroll to your work and actually look at the work. And then past that, as they're looking at your individual projects, what is going to keep them, you know, reading all the way through? And how are they going, like, what sort of takeaway do you want to give them about the project that you were working on? So understanding that would give you a pretty good insight on how you can pace that according to the user flow, if you will. So in this case, it's kind of the potential employer who's actually looking at it, or perhaps a hiring manager who's looking at it, and they'll be looking at it for different criteria. So you have to kind of understand that as well. As you're building out your portfolio, just understand that you're going to have different audiences looking at it. So you do want to kind of cater to, you know, the type of job that you're looking for. And then in order to pace it out well, you know, disperse the text throughout and have images showing. I love seeing sketches. I think, you know, part of this question was like, you know, what types of portfolios do you like to see? I know that there's a bit of like a debate between some designers on, you know, should I just put finished work or should I put sketches? If you're applying for a UX role, you know, for me personally, I like seeing sketches when I look at other designers' work, and I'm kind of looking at them for my own sort of recruitment process. And I love kind of the breakdown of their thinking. And if a designer can, in an interview, talk to their portfolio and demonstrate to me that they understand the whole process that was involved, the problem that they were trying to solve, along with what their part was in that project. Say it was like a student project and it was a group project. I want to know what their involvement was and their individual participation, right? Because they may be putting stuff on their portfolio that is perhaps someone else's work. And so I'd like them to be able to demonstrate to me that, you know, they can clearly articulate what they did for their work. So, yeah.
Yeah, great, Leon. Thank you. Ben is here, our third panelist. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, how are you guys? Sorry for being late. Client works and deadlines push my days these days too late.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and you started
nice
you started a new job too. So congratulations.
Yeah, it's a new role. Yes, 100%.
Great.
A new company. Hi, everyone. I'll just introduce myself quickly because we're in the middle of a conversation. My name is Ben. I've been a product designer. Started my journey about 12 years ago as an industrial designer. I worked on, back then, product design was more of a physical thing. I would say UX, UI on a digital side was right in the beginning. So product design was more leaning to the physical space. And over the years, I transitioned to doing digital UX, UI. So I'll share my LinkedIn if anyone wants to see and join and connect with me after that. I would be more than happy to. When it comes to the portfolio, for me, everyone need to have a portfolio, and nothing should hold you guys back. Get a Wix portfolio, get a template from Squarespace. Just have something out there. I can tell you that even today, after 12 years, I'm still not happy with what I present. I always want to change it again and again and again, and it's a work in progress. But having something out there, at least a few projects that you can link someone to, that's a very well needed thing. I understand the reason, and some people just want to kind of create this website that can show their creativity and take your future boss through this journey or whatever, and have this beautiful dribble kind of portfolios. But my advice is just don't spend a lot of time at that at the beginning. Even moving forward, I don't think you're going to spend a lot of time doing that. The content, that's what matters. When I look at a portfolio of a designer, I do want to see less of how beautiful their website looks like or the portfolio that that represent them, but more what the content is in their projects that they show. How were they involved in that project, and their the way they think, things that they've decided in some sort of a decision-making point. How do they collaborate with other designers during that project? I would say what Leon said is very correct in a sense of putting sketches in. A lot of times as designers, UX, at least, there's a lot of sketch work coming into how do you work with the pen and paper. Not always we'll have a computer next to us. So sketching and whatever you can put in that shows more of a, less of a digital standpoint, because digital standpoint, it's an, how would I explain that? You'll take what you created on piece of paper and you move it to digital after. So I would say that you want to show your capabilities of sketching things and conveying messages before going into digital. So that's something that will improve your portfolio, at least when you come into showing a case study. But bottom line is the content. Even if the website is just white or a template from somewhere, the content, the projects that you put in. I do agree with Leon, if you have projects that are not relevant to the actual position that you want to go for. So for example, if you want to go into UX, but you have projects from art school that you did in ceramics, maybe it's not relevant, so just don't put it in. But some people put photography stuff inside just to show their creativity and the way that they see things. That could be nice, but it can be just an added thing, not necessarily something that you want to put in the spotlight. And I would say, yeah, just get something out there. Don't wait. If you don't have a portfolio, you don't have a present, and you'll always continue to change it. There's platforms like Wix, Squarespace, anything you can tell. If you want to explore a little bit more and customize, you can dive into a platform called Webflow. It's a very steep learning curve, and it's kind of hard to, if you have some development background, you can get the understanding of what's going on there easier, and you'll be able to fully customize things and do animations and stuff. But again, that's an afterthought. Content is what matter. And that's what hiring managers wants to see, less on the color of the website, but more of the content of the website. And that's my 2 cents on that. Hope that helped.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Yeah, I was always thinking about that, and maybe you can talk about that in the breakout rooms. That we had the portfolios, and we are going to show there our thinking process, design process, and everything. But we don't need to forget that sometimes the first person that is seeing our portfolio is not a designer; it's a hiring manager. So you have to think of like covering the needs of that hiring manager. What do they need to see there in my portfolio to make it attractive? So it's a big long discussion about portfolios. The next question is about the skills. So this is not a poll, but I'm going to ask everyone to answer this question in the chat. I'm going to post the question now. So which non-technical skills do you think are important for a designer? That's the question for the audience. So can you yes, communication, collaboration, empathy, collaboration again, willingness to learn, that's interesting. Presentation skills, that I think is important too. Flexibility, writing, storytelling, humility, I like that one. Listening, communication, that is with empathy too. Copywriting, interesting, copywriting, I didn't think about that. So yeah, so the next question for the panelists is about soft skills. So we know that interviewers have a natural tendency to want to work with people who demonstrate the skills they value. And actually it's a natural bias, like you want to hire someone that is very similar to you. So apart from the technical skills that we have to have as a designer, what are the soft skills that make you a good designer, or what are the skills you seek in a job candidate? Maybe Leon can start now?
Yeah, definitely. So that sort of human to human connection aspect of a job is really important, specifically, and probably more so in this day and age when we are working through screens. You have to be able to understand how to communicate with the people you're working with and empathize with them. And so the fact that empathy plays a role in design is great, but also empathizing with the people who you work with is equally important. And that kind of talks to, I guess, like the demonstration of how much you care, right? And that can exhibit itself in a number of ways. But what I mean by that is, you obviously do care about UX, or else you wouldn't be in this field to begin with. But how can you show that to people who might not necessarily understand UX? How are you going to demonstrate that? Is it going to be in the form of like a wireframe, or are you going to, spend that extra time with them to chat with them and set up a meeting and go through something with them, and make sure that they're confident in the solution that you're proposing? And if not, then we kind of hash it out and ask for feedback, right? So that humility aspect to that piece is really important as well, because not only do you have to know how to present your ideas and talk to it and, understand design and all, a lot of the sort of best practices that you have to kind of know. The other aspect is being able to listen and be receptive of feedback when people are giving it to you. So yeah, those two kind of combined are what I would say are pretty equal weighted skills.
What about you, Ben? What do you think about the soft skills?
I agree with Leon about that. I think one of the things that I want to see in designers is the ability to convey thoughts. Although when it comes to convey things in design, you can always kind of show pictures and sketch and kind of talk about what you want to, the ideas that you have. But it's the soft skills of being able to collaborate with other designers in a room together, especially like Leon mentioned today online. The working together and sticking things on the wall, or kind of having discussions between yourselves is a little bit more challenging. So the constant communication bridge is you have to have even higher communication capabilities. But yeah, it's a lot of how do you communicate with your fellow designers, not only designers, but also other stakeholders in the actual project, depending on how big of your role is. in your team, it can be also software developers. So not expecting that they'll understand the same language that you will, but still be able to accomplish the goal together. And feedback, understanding to get feedback in a constructive way and give feedback in a constructive way is very, very important. I think, and I still think I sin in a sense of a lot of designers have, we have our egos and we like our designs, and sometimes we fall in love in our designs and it's kind of hard to detach yourself from it. But kind of accepting the fact that it's a process, and being able to listen to other people and understanding that not necessarily what you think it is, the way things are. So it's communication, it's humility, it's putting your ego aside and being able to collaborate. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. Ken, what about you?
Yeah, those are all great answers, Ben and Leon. And then and I echo all of those. And I'm also reading kind of the chats too. The last one, ego kills design. I haven't heard that before, like verbatim, but that's pretty accurate. You know, I think like, yeah, everything in here, it's super relevant, but at the end of the day, yeah, like it's, you know, learning how to play in the sandbox, right? As kids, we kind of had to learn how to like share and communicate and compromise with other people, and that's so key in UX design, because yeah, like we have, you know, I'm in an organization where we have a couple of big projects and all of us are kind of designing to this project, and so egos are certainly present, and like it's sometimes it can get difficult to look past that, you know, and as designers we often can be pretty strong-headed and strong-willed, and we do get married to these ideas and these designs, and like I think it's important to be able to step back and realize that, like, you know, yeah, we were hired to do this job of being a designer, but like we also have to really look at like what we're doing here. We're trying to solve problems for people. We're trying to build software that huge assumption here that we might not ever even use, right? I mean, unless we're working for like Google or, you know, these big companies. I am not, but like, you know, I work for a financial institution. So, so kind of consider like, you know, you might, I hope maybe I'll get flamed for that, but yeah, like, well, you know, for me, like the projects that I'm working on, I probably won't ever use this project. But I still find myself getting very attached to things. And so, yeah, you know, just to kind of like finish that thought is just like, you know, you have to consider the business needs, and that's what's most important. Well, the user needs and the business needs, and those are the two things that are like writing your check. So, yeah, and then, you know, someone said, I like the, someone said Slack, like write better Slacks or yeah, write good Slack messages. It's pretty true. Like, and you know, given our COVID world right now, like a lot of communication is written. And so, and also if there is urgency behind the messaging, sometimes your message just doesn't come out very well. So kind of double checking yourself on how we communicate with people, and by having that empathy, right? Like we're living in a kind of different time. So it's like having empathy, being flexible and being patient with your team members, but also your other stakeholders is going to be pretty key.
Yeah, great. I'm wondering too, how do you demonstrate you have those skills in an interview? Because it's something very difficult to explain. I say, oh, I'm a very good team player, but how can I demonstrate that? It's tricky.
Well,
yeah,
some interviews are, even when we used to go to the office to get interviewed by a company, usually it's not one interviewer. Now you'll just jump onto a call with 5 or 6 different people at the same time. So there is a way to kind of show your participation, maybe not talk over other people, and try to mesh with the group itself. It is more of a challenge, but it is possible. Maybe it's less personable in a way, and the screen does make it more of a challenge. But it's there. It's still there.
Yeah, and I think to bring up like live, practical examples from the past as well, and to kind of, if people ask you for a very specific example, I think someone mentioned that in the chat, what's an example of something that you've experienced recently where you can kind of like talk to the fact that you kind of exhibited some of these skills that we were talking about when it comes to empathy and humility. And I mean, like, one particular example I can think of is with the organization that I volunteer with at AssistList. They're looking to create a blog. And so there's a lot of kind of chatter going on Slack saying, are the developers ready with the blog? And the developers are like, no, we don't have, our specifications lined out yet. So there's a lot of kind of back and forth. And then you as a designer have to be kind of proactive in that. And so I kind of stepped in and was like, here are the specifications that we need. We're still kind of going to have to research on these particular aspects, like what CMS are we going to use? So like being proactive about it, I would say. And so I think that's like one practical example I can give of when you would be the sort of kind of a mediator in some instances between like different opinionated views. And at times you kind of have to, just kind of show what you can do as a designer and with that empathy in mind, right? So.
Yeah, great. So next questions. I know we have many students here coming from bootcamps and universities. So we are going to launch this poll, Leticia, about bootcamp. It's coming. Yeah, so tell us about your education in design. So maybe you have a degree from university or from a bootcamp, or you are not studying in any traditional institute and you are a self-learner. Yeah, everyone is studying something. That's good. Oh, there is one person. I haven't studied design at all. Okay, it's never late to start. I think we are done. Yeah, Leticia, I think we are done. Let's see the results. Yeah, so most of the people are attending boot camps. Other people are from college or universities. Yeah, 6 self-learners. I started as a self-learner too. Yeah, great. So the question about the bootcamp. So what are the next steps after getting a certificate or a degree in UX design? And what is a realistic timeline for getting your first job in design? I think this is especially important because we are in these COVID pandemic times. Some people are sending 100 resumes, applying for 100 jobs, and they are not getting answers. So I would like to know about that timeline, realistic timeline about getting a job, and what can we do after the bootcamp to get better. Maybe Ben, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, today is a little bit of a different environment when we look at what happened since April, when everything shut down. I think that, I mean, when you get out of boot camp, usually people that go into boot camps don't have a lot of work in their resume and in their portfolio, and that's why there's not a lot of volume into those portfolios. In my opinion, what can be done is try to find work that is even, there's communities out there that you can do some volunteer work towards different causes or with different companies, obviously up to a certain extent. You don't want to do a full-blown project involuntarily, but there are avenues to do some volunteer work, and with that getting some sort of a condition with them that you can use that into your portfolio so you can have a little bit more volume into it, but also it's a good way to practice with different companies. Another way is just to try to find as a freelance work and just gamble. I think taking a freelance work from with a client and try to work what you know and do that. Of course, I don't think that major clients like Coca-Cola will reach out to you as a freelance, but it can be whatever company that is a restaurant nearby or a friend of a friend that has a website that they want to better improve. Yeah, just start small. But I do think that there's a lot of different startups that are looking for someone to start moving their project with. There is a community on Slack, and I'll be more than happy to share that shows that has a lot of opportunities for people to start volunteering with different startups that are just in their financing rounds, and they will have the opportunity maybe to move forward with that job and go aboard as paid work. Because obviously if you're starting the journey with them and building something with these companies, they would want you to continue on with the project if possible, and collaborating with other designers. If any of you guys get connected on LinkedIn and there's a need for someone that you know that you'd like to work with or something like that, just knowing people in the community and start kind of reaching out to each other and collaborate together. That's a great way to add more resources to your portfolio, but also networking and you'll get a job one day, you'll move it to someone else, work with them, and it will just open your network and get more work towards you.
Yeah, actually, the last question is about networking. It's interesting. So Ben, and just very quickly, like a timeline. What do you think is the time normally people will get until they get the first job in a company?
It's hard to say. I can say that even for me, with my experience, it can take months. I don't really know what to say about timeline these days. If we were talking about 2 years ago, it would have been very different. But with the shutdown, a lot of different companies went under, and designers that got laid off. The competition out there is pretty tough. Especially with the companies now that they have a hard time onboarding and everything is remote. They would like to have someone that has a lot of experience and sometimes with their own niche. So yeah, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it is more of a challenging way. So that kind of ties back into just get a portfolio up, get something out there, do some work, volunteer, try to get some more volume into it so you'll have more experience to show.
Yeah, I mean that question is more like I'm expecting people not to get impatient. Like I know people are applying for jobs and it has months and months and they are not getting anything, but it's completely normal. I mean, we are living in difficult times. Ken, what about you?
Yeah. Okay. So after you guys have completed your boot camp, yeah, I'll probably echo a lot of what Ben has said is yeah, like start writing, so I run a boot camp right now. I think I'm familiar with kind of the overall feeling that people have when they leave the boot camp. You guys have learned a ton of information and you're like, what do I do with this now? How do I kind of move forward from here? The best thing to do is yeah, start writing. And when I say writing, writing at your case study, and I tell this to my students too, it's, writing out an outline of, how you want to structure and organize your case study. It's also writing out your putting your resume together, if you don't have a resume that's updated, you definitely want to include, that you went to a boot camp. I'll go on a small tangent, and like, if you have done a boot camp, you want to maybe consider how you want to structure your resume, because if you haven't done UX design before, ask yourself how you're going to actually explain to a hiring manager that you were in a boot camp and you at least you've worked on some UX projects. And so I would consider looking at structuring your resume as a project-based resume, right? So if you've done a couple of projects in your boot camp, you should probably list that out, and list it out in a way that's how you would list out a job that you did, right? And I can provide more detail there if needed, but yeah. So because you don't just want to say, hey, I went to a boot camp, and then have the rest of your information, like your past 3 jobs, on your resume. You really want to leverage that boot camp experience on your resume. The other part of the question was, let me scroll up here.
A realistic timeline. I know it's difficult to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, or just to kind of sum up that part, like, yeah, start writing, and I'll probably just keep saying this to you guys, and I hope because I've seen students, I work with students, and it is it's kind of a hard thing to tip over to start writing. So, but yeah, so a timeline, yeah, that's a hard one. When I've seen kids get jobs before the cohort is even over, but now realistically, it's going to be a lot of plan on spending a lot of time working on your resume and your portfolio and networking, that's but yeah, it's kind of a hard one to really to answer. But one thing I was going to say is, yeah, try to find freelance gigs, work with a friend, work with your other students. Like, if you really jive with a student, maybe you can kind of come up with a new project to work on. I would also say to, if you do find a freelance job, that's awesome. But I would also say to, not be afraid to work for free. That doesn't mean that you should, take on a big project and it's taking, let's say 4 hours of your day every day. Don't do that, but like, try to find a project that's doable, manageable, that you think would help you. It'll kind of leverage your resume, it'll leverage your experience, and leverage your portfolio. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Dion.
Yeah, so I just want to say, in terms of timeline, it's really like, how desperate are you to get a job, right? Like, if you're really strapped and you really need to find something, I think you can do it, right? Even in this tough time, you just have to really kind of really figure out what you're trying to look for. And if it's something that, in terms of timeline, if you're on a really tight timeline and you're just like, I need to get a visa or whatever, you're going to do everything in your power to try and do that. And that includes working, for free in some instances, and kind of trying to find work that really applies. But so in doing that, you have to really be selective about what you're looking for. And, in terms of like your experience, maybe you're a fresh grad from a boot camp, and sometimes, we're getting a lot of people in the industry saying that just boot camp work is not enough. And I kind of disagree with that. I think that there's a lot of great projects that come out of boot camps, depending on, how involved you are, how proactive you are in kind of doing the work and putting that out there and crafting that portfolio, and just, you know, exhibiting the best of what you can do and kind of polishing those skills. And so I don't think that graduation should be like the end point for you. I think that it's more of, there's more along that journey of finding work. And even if, you know, you feel like you've kind of landed your first job, I don't think that growth like mindset should stop. I think that you should continue to grow and learn and make connections and cast out, you know, tentacles and try and like find different you know, networks, communities like IterateUX to join and be a part of, so that you can then engage in discourse and talk about design with people. And you'll be surprised, you know, designers, non-designers, whatever it is, the more you talk about things and the more you show that you're passionate about design and you're passionate about getting a job in design, the more opportunities will begin to present themselves in these strange, unlikely ways, right? So yeah, I would say just talk about it with people, talk about it with like the person on the street who you're like, you know, the cafe, at the cafe, and like just anybody who's willing to kind of listen to what you have to say about it. And so that kind of plays into, you know, the writing about design as well, right? And being able to kind of clearly articulate, you know, your thoughts, and then to kind of convey that and communicate that with other people. Good things I think will start happening. So don't be discouraged. You know, being in this sort of time and place, it can be frustrating, you know, looking at the job market and looking at the job postings out there, for sure.
Can I just connect something with this? Be cautious with free work.
Yeah.
That can be very costly in time. Just even try to kind of reach out to friends on different platforms. If you have Facebook, LinkedIn, say that you're open for work. Say that you have some time, taking some new clients, whatever you want to say. Maybe a friend of a friend knows someone that has a small shop that needs a little bit of work on their site or something, that can be beneficial for you. But again, also volunteering, make sure that you know how many hours you're putting in. Don't just become another design. Don't design things for free for long periods of times just because you need the work as well. Can understand that you have value as well. So even though you need that into your portfolio, you're not going to spend like 4 months working on someone's project just because you need some piece into your new website or something. So yeah, be mindful of that as well, because people will want to get more work done for themselves that you can do when you can spend it getting paid.
Be very careful about that.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I heard about that. It's complicated, this kind of free job. So the last question, because we are running out of time, I'm going to ask you to answer those in the breakout rooms. It's only the last question. And it's interesting because it's about networking. So Leticia, can you launch the poll? Yeah, so which networking method have you found the most successful? Just choose one of them. I want to know how is your style of networking. We have virtual or in-person meetups, LinkedIn, through contacts to the friend of a friend. Okay, it's very diverse. I think meetups is the main method. You have 5 seconds more. All the above, yeah. Gerald is saying everything. Okay, so let's end the poll. Yes, the most, it's attend virtual and personal meetups and people on LinkedIn. I'm very surprised. I know people contact the friend of a friend. That does a good networking too. This is my favorite one. I haven't found a way I feel comfortable with. For me, networking had been a whole new world since I came into Canada, and I have learning a lot of things since I came here. But I still, I think I still don't feel completely comfortable with that. So yeah, so the questions are, I want you to answer in the breakout rooms. Here, I'm going to put it in the chat. It's about this hidden job market that many people keep talking about. It says that only 30% of the jobs are posted on the job boards. So mainly you get jobs because you know someone who knows someone, or via networking. So networking is very important. So what do you think is the best approach for effective networking? So for the people who want to stay here, we're going to stay around 10 minutes in the breakout room, so you can hear this answer, and you can make some other questions to the panelists. So if you want